Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with more revenge and malicious compliance stories. In today's title story, OP has to deal with a bunch of entitled squatters who not only trespassed and stayed in his home illegally, but they also sold his belongings online. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right in. The first one is titled, Squatters Moved Into My Home and Sold My Belongings Online. I recently was going through the process of buying a new home and moving. Things actually seemed to be going perfectly, as I had a buyer for my old house around the same time that I was moving into my new one. That fell through though, and I was left trying to sell my house while living in a new one about an hour away. This was not ideal, but I was trying to get out there once a week for open houses to try and get someone to buy it. We ended up not having any showings for a couple of weeks before the next one was set to happen. Despite it being a long trip, I decided to go and make sure everything was set up right the day before. I did not fully move out all of my things so that the place would look a little homier, and plus some things like the stove obviously were being left completely. When I got there, I was shocked to find that the door was ajar and a car was parked outside. I walked in and there were two men standing in the living room holding cash and a blender. You could guess that I was both confused and terrified about what was going on. Me? What are you doing in my house? My demand got their attention, and the man who was holding the blender took off running out the front door. I decided not to chase him and instead question the other man who was standing there looking extremely confused. Me? What were you two doing? Man? Well, I was just answering his online ad. He said he was selling a blender. Me? This is my house though, and those are my things. Man? There are ads on the internet where someone said they are the owner and trying to get rid of some stuff cheap before they move out. The man then realizes what was going on and instantly starts freaking out. Man? Please don't have me arrested. I swear I had no idea that it wasn't his house. Me? Calm down, it's not your fault. Can you show me where these ads are though? The man instantly relaxes when he realizes that I'm not trying to get him arrested and takes out his phone to show me. I pull it up on my own phone and take screenshots as evidence for the police. They say they cannot really do anything because they traced the cell phone number he gave to a burner phone and the name does not come up with an actual person. I took a moment to be frustrated before realizing there was another way I could handle this. I could be sneaky in order to get my revenge. I set up cameras so if he came back to make another sale, I would have the whole thing on video. Now, you might be thinking that nobody would be dumb enough to come back to my house to sell things once they almost got caught. Well, I guess this criminal was not exactly a mastermind, because only 2 days later I found him getting a window open from the outside and working his way in. And by the way guys, I think this is not as uncommon as the OP believes, because in the past I have often read stories about criminals actually returning to the crime scene. Anyway, I got the whole thing on camera and had it streaming to my computer at home. As soon as I saw what was going on, I called the police and told them that it was happening right now. I was able to see on the camera the police going into the house and talking to the man. The whole time I was watching it like a movie and couldn't wait for the moment they arrested him. It did not happen though, and instead they calmly escorted him out and let him go on his way. I was furious that he wasn't being thrown in the back of a police car for all of this crap that he pulled and wanted to find out why. Apparently, what happened was he was giving some story about how he was living there and even took the man to a room that didn't have cameras set up. Turns out that during those 2 weeks he was not only selling all my things but also squatting on the property. So, instead of being arrested, I had to take this man to court and let a judge decide. I did not need this added stress in my life, but there was no way I was letting him get away with this, so I was going to take him to court. I knew going in that the products were long gone, but I wanted him to pay for what he did. Maybe if he still had the money, I could get that back from him as well. When we got our day in court, I was finally able to see this man up close for the first time. He looked ragged and tried his best to look good for court, but his best was a way off. I presented my case and all the evidence that I had against him, and now it was his turn to try and defend anything that he did. Man: "Sir, nobody was living in that house. That means that it was abandoned and all the stuff was up for grabs." Judge: "He still owned the property." Man: "But he wasn't living in it, so the law says." Judge: "I'm going to stop you right there. You don't know the law. I know the law. The law says that it was still his property and everything in it belonged to him. You broke in, you stole, and you sold those stolen goods. Do you still have the money you received from any of those items?" Man: "No, Your Honor." Judge: "So you in no way can even offer to make reparations for the stolen goods?" Man: "They were not stolen, they were abandoned. He just said that he moved and left that stuff there." Me: "To make the house look better towards sellers, Your Honor." Judge: "It doesn't matter. They were still in a property that you own, so even if you were not using them, they were still yours." Man: "That's just greedy though. I have a family to feed and this man is sitting here with 2 houses and trying to arrest a poor hardworking man." At the end of the day, I obviously won and the man was arrested for trespassing and burglary. It turns out that this man was actually a huge meth head and took all the money he got from selling my goods in order to buy more drugs. I guess the family he was referring to was him and the food was referring to more drugs. This was evident when the police found the meth he was keeping in my house when they helped evict him and all of his belongings. So he got a much longer sentencing than he would have otherwise and is now going to spend the better part of a decade in jail. During this whole time, I had lost all opportunities to show the house and was just happy that now I can try to sell my house again. Nothing that was stolen was worth very much money, and a few things that were, insurance was going to cover because they were stolen. I'm honestly just hoping that I can sell this property soon so I can stop having to take 2 hours of my day every time I want to show up to the house. Since the incident, I actually have been making the trip daily in fear of another squatter taking over. I eventually asked my aunt if she wouldn't mind moving in until I could find a buyer so I wouldn't waste all this time and gas money. A warning tale for anyone that owns a property that nobody is currently living in to keep a very close eye on it. It doesn't take long for a squatter to break in and make your life a living hell while you try to get them out and fix the problems they caused. And yeah, Ripe Stars, time and time again I gotta say I am baffled by how difficult it seems to be to get rid of squatters on or / in your property. In addition, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever had to deal with squatters on your property? If so, what did you do? Please feel free to share with us in the comments. And while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance, your help is very much appreciated. The next one is titled, "Keep Complaining, Enjoy Your Vacation in a Construction Site." This happened a long time ago when I worked on cruise ships. We always had dickheads from the internet forum, Cruise Critic. This guy had printed a sign, "I'm a cruise critic," and put it on his cabin door. Basically, these people expect special service and complain about absolutely everything to get free upgrades, drinks, or even a free cruise. As soon as he got on board, he complained about his cabin and was upgraded to a balcony suite to shut him up. It still was not good enough, he kept complaining that his TV reception was not crystal clear. We visited his cabin and saw no issue with the image. In fact, it was better than most TVs as it was close to the amplifier for that section. After replacing the TV anyway and explaining that we are tracking a geostationary TV satellite on a moving ship with a gyro-stabilized dish and millions of dollars of above and below decks equipment, he still kept complaining that the picture was not as clear as his TV at home. After 48 hours of him complaining and demanding a complimentary cruise, he was already cruising for free after complaining so much about his last cruise, we planned our revenge. When we knew he was at his allocated dining time, my AV team showed up in the cabin and gathered a team of engineers, fitters and electricians. We stripped all of the wall and roof panels and pulled out all the AV wiring, dumping a buttload of dust everywhere before downing tools and calling it a day. After the guest and his wife returned after dinner and a show, he called the front desk furious that his cabin had been turned into an uninhabitable construction site. It was explained to him that we listened to his demands and as such were rewiring his cabin to ensure he has crystal clear TV reception just like he asked. He was advised it would take a few days, the rest of the cruise, as it is a very complex job. He went quiet before asking to be moved to another cabin. He was moved to a cabin smaller than his original cabin and above the bow thrusters. He was not heard from again the rest of the cruise. And Ripe Stars, I am wondering, have you ever been on a cruise? And if so, where did you go? Personally, I've never been on one, but I think my dad frequently goes to these cruises, however the more cheap ones, not those super luxury ones. And I think what he enjoys the most is that all the food and drinks are free. However, then again, during the pandemic, a cruise is probably not the smartest thing to do, considering that you might get stuck on the ocean for a long time. And the next one is titled, "You did $30,000 in damage to our rental house, but sure, you can leave your broken down car in the driveway. I don't mind." So, your typical redneck family moved into my grandpa's rental house. The father is a loud and easily enraged handyman, his wife almost never seen, and one son is a drug slinger, while the other is a multi-felon bag of nuts. Drugs and parties galore, you get the idea. The house, which could fetch $1,400 a month, which is generally a large and nice house in our area, is destroyed over 5 or 6 years for only $600 a month. When he actually pays it, that is. Grandpa during this time is showing all the symptoms of dementia and would normally never let someone get the better of him like this, so at one point I start working with my father doing upkeep in Grandpa's place. At this point, I live in one of Grandpa's houses within walking distance of the one redneck has been living in, so I of course had the great pleasure of being able to tape the multiple eviction notices to their door when they hadn't paid rent for 6 months. After all of the legal proceedings, it has been 8 months that they haven't paid rent and the sheriff is present as we set their things outside because the judge approved an immediate eviction. It probably helped when they didn't even show up to court to defend themselves. They had not been seen for a couple days, so they were not present for this. Therefore, we were courteous enough to bring in our own guys to carefully move their things out. The lawmen there were happy to take every bit of paraphernalia that was found in the process. Redneck did show up later that night though, so I stood on my porch out of sight and listened as he got out of his car to scream, "This is BS!" as loud as he could in full redneck accent. We had already changed locks and literally bolted shut the windows, so they left after collecting some random things and as is expected, Redneck squealed his tires on the way out. They broke in the back door that night but didn't do any other damage and were already gone the next morning. We notified the police and replaced the door as it was weak anyway. For the full picture, the house is a 2-story, 3-bedroom with 2 full bathrooms, 2 large living rooms, 2 large fireplaces, French doors onto a large deck and a garage as well as a carport in the back. It also came with all of the appliances, some furniture and whatnot. The surrounding area is fields and woods with a really nice view out of the bay windows. My dad built this house with his own hands in the 70s and I had been in the house before they moved in, so it was genuinely sad to see the place like it was. When it's all done and over with, they are moved out and my dad ends up having to put a little over $30,000 into the house to make it livable. It took 3 months of work and even after that, a plumber and electrician had to go and fix several problems that were discovered with tests and use. New renters get moved in as soon as possible, all is good and well, but then one day on my way to work I see the redneck's family car parked at the end of the lane. It is an old beater with the bumper and driver door both being different colors from the rest of the car, so it is hard to mistake. Our family-owned business is where he would usually pay rent, and I'm only at work for about an hour when I am told that I have a phone call on hold. I take the line and he doesn't hesitate to start in his hard-to-understand lilt.
Hey, this is Redneck. My car needs fixing and I left it in the lane. Can it stay there for a few days?
I am grinning and I almost giggle after I thought it over for a second. Sure, I don't mind. He hangs up just like that and I don't stop smiling as I start to look at local tow companies on the internet. I find the one with the highest rates at the responsibility of the car's owner and gave them a call. They even charged hourly for the time their driver was on the road, so I was glad the place was a good while away. After waiting only half an hour after work, the tow truck showed up and I was happy to watch as he got the car hooked up. Once he got done, I pointed him to the paved area where he could turn around and then he was gone. It was on the 4th day that I got a phone call from Redneck's little wife and I am certain he was staring at her the whole time as she politely asked where the car had been sent. I think someone had it towed. I tell her with a reassurance that I will call her back as soon as I find out who towed it and where. That was on Friday. So guess who didn't hear from me until Monday? She answered and I told her, hey, I found out it was XYZ Towing Company. Being as polite as ever, she thanked me and the line went dead. So that was 4 business days and 2 weekend days before they got to the car, as I imagine they went to get it as soon as they found out. With the rates from their website, I figured out that their bill should have been at least $700. There is no way that these people would have that much money as none of them were employed. Their only money came from the 2 parents who got social security somehow, despite only being in their 40s/early 50s. That was a year ago and I've never seen that car on the local streets since. To this day, I smile just thinking about it. The next one was posted by user DC Applinger or D Caplinger, I'm not sure, on r/ripe stories and it is titled Karen tries to take boy from his mother because mother was threatening to swat the boy for bad behavior. About 20 years ago, I was shopping for groceries when I heard a loud screech from the next aisle over. I left my cart and ran to see what the commotion was. There was a lady with a young son shopping and the boy was not behaving. I had seen both the mom and son several times while walking the aisles and saw her gently swat the boy at one point. It seemed the young boy was misbehaving again, so mom threatened to spank him again. Also present was a very typical Karen in the wild who decided to try to take the boy from his mother because of the threat, and the mother was the one who screamed. I calmly asked what happened and Karen spouted that the mother was threatening to assault the child and that spanking was illegal in our state. So she tried to physically get him away from his mother. Big mistake. Then she said she was calling the police to get the mother arrested. It was at that time that I pulled the right side of my jacket open to expose the badge and gun hidden on my waist. I told the Karen, "Lady, I am the police. It is legal for a parent to use corporal punishment, including spanking, in our state." She tried to argue, at which point I pulled open the left side of my jacket, exposing my handcuffs, and said, "If you don't stop harassing this woman and her son, or you keep acting in a disorderly fashion, I will gladly arrest you." I already have probable cause for attempting kidnapping and or interfering with parental rights. Karen's face went from red to very pale white, gulping. Without another word, she left her cart and was escorted out of the store by their asset management officer, aka security, and was given a trespass warning. That was my very first encounter with a Karen in the wild, but certainly was not the last of the many I have come across. I'm retired now, but I will still intervene if I see someone trying to do what she did. Understand, I don't advocate for the use of corporal punishment, but by law, that is a choice for the parents to make. I merely stood up to let Karen know the use of such punishment, especially as gently as the mother had used, was very much legal in our state, and it still is. Every time I think of that encounter, I get mad for not arresting the Karen, as she did attempt to kidnap the lad, and at the minimum she would have faced an endangering the welfare of a minor charge. And guys, for some more context, we will also read some comments. A user in the comments said, "Good for you and good for mom. I will never advocate for beating a child, but a gentle swat on the butt does not hurt the child and does get their attention when other means are not working. My son, 27, never got a spanking, but he knew that if he pushed too far, he would. My grandkids were the same way. All I had to do was say stop and give them the look, as they call it, and whatever they were doing ended right then." And then OP responded, "Absolutely, in the case from my OP, the woman swatted her son on the buttocks with a rolled up group of coupons from a Sunday newspaper. The boy was maybe 5 or 6 years old and the sound had a much bigger impact than physical pain. Actually, the kid would not have felt anything, as those coupon leaflets were as effective as a paddle as a limp piece of spaghetti. It was all about tone of voice, the noise of the spanking, and being a responsible mother. As I said, I had already seen the way she used the physical punishment and knew it was very lightly administered. Just in case anyone wonders why I did not arrest the Karen, it was because the mother opted not to pursue charges and was satisfied that Karen had been banned from the store for 6 months. Believe me when I say I memorized everything about Karen's car. It really was not that hard though, because guess who was waiting in the lot to try to confront mom again? At that point I really should have arrested the Karen, because even though the mom did not want to press charges, since I had a direct confession from Karen saying she did try to physically take the boy from his mom, I still had all the probable cause I needed. Karen sitting in the lot waiting for mom to come out of the store technically would have worked itself into a felony charge of attempting to intimidate a witness/victim. I will try to post more stuff here in the future. I worked over 30 years in emergency services, literally working in every type of emergency services. I started with emergency management as a near full-time volunteer. Even though I started when I was 12, I was allowed to do some very grown-up stuff, including contributions to the county's emergency operations plan. After that, I was a firefighter/EMT for 15 years, a deputy sheriff for 12 years, and at the sheriff's office I worked as an emergency telecommunicator in the 911 dispatch division. I did that for 5 years and transferred to the court division, which is where I ran into most of the Karens and Chads. Damn, I loved to arrest them when they became disorderly in my courthouse. I was made chief of the division after about 4 years working as a bailiff to the Associate Circuit Court that handled criminal cases and served as the circuit court for all things probate. And yeah, ripe stars, since you have listened until here, I would love to hear your perspective in regards to this story. Do you agree with what OP said? Let us know in the comments. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.